Hey, true crime fanatics, this is Claire.
And I'm Andy.
You're tuned in to the Homicide Hobbies podcast, which is a podcast for people who love to hear about the horrendous crimes that people commit. Enjoy. Where are we?
So, happy Halloween.
I assume we're doing a Halloween special today.
Well, it's Halloween today, so yeah.
Holding out on me.
So, our win is Halloween. Woo!
Forgive her. She's been sick for a real long time. They haven't had a doctor to take her case on.
Fuck you. Anyway, our win is Halloween 2010. Our where has their state motto as, with God, all things are possible.
Massachusetts.
Need another hint? This state has a slogan, birthplace of aviation, on its license plates.
North Carolina.
Need another hint?
Oh, wait.
Are you Googling it?
Hold on. No, I was trying to sit there and think, because where are the Wright are the Wright brothers from Minnesota?
Need another hint? Their state flower is a red carnation.
What does that help?
I think on mine, though, I'm going to start telling you like their state flower or state bird.
Ohio.
You Googled it, you cheater.
No, I was trying to think of when I was doing
Lies.
the Wright brothers. I don't even have my phone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coloring.
Pay attention.
And if I Googled it, I wouldn't have 52 other guesses.
You done just Googled it now. That's what the pause was. Anyway.
Oh, the pause was because I was doing a case and the North Carolina, where was it, Carolina? Mm-hmm. When I was doing my fact things of, there was some snippet thing of like how North Carolina has first in flight on their tag, but the Wright brothers weren't from the Carolinas. Now, they were in the Carolinas when it happened, but the whole other state where I have brain fart where they came from, like it was one of those, I was looking for facts on the case I was doing, but somehow ended up reading facts on all these other states. It was a real focused effort as well.
So yes, we are going to be in Ohio.
They've got a real bad drug problem.
Yeah.
So I assume it's going to be in our case?
Not really.
Oh, is this going to be the case where there's a body hanging on the fence?
No.
I read about one of those.
Yeah.
That everybody thought it was a Halloween decoration.
I've heard that case. She's there for a couple weeks before the smell attracted.
Dude, that chick had fought so hard, her biceps tore.
Yeah. It's really sad.
But anyway, Ohio, 2008.
Halloween, 2010.
That's close.
Before we get into the chaos Halloween brings, I'm going to do like you absolutely hate.
Oh, no.
And I'm just going to throw some background information at you, and you can jot down.
It's so stupid.
No, think of it like a movie when they introduce you to all the different characters. You got to wait for the plot.
No, except I don't go into a movie going, what movie am I watching? I've got a general idea of what the going-ons is.
The general goings-on is it's going to involve a murder on Halloween. I thought you done figured that out by now. I didn't realize you're feeling that slow today.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I'm going to tell you their names, how they're related to each other, and I'll let you know when their ages actually matter, but I'm just giving you like context and background information so the rest of it makes sense, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So first off, we've got Susan Liske. She's 37. Susan was a member of her local Lutheran church. She enjoyed hunting, camping, and gardening. She was an office manager for, this is a mouthful, but Northwest Ohio Carpenters Joint Apprenticeship and Training Committee. And prior to working there, she was employed by Waste Management, where she met her now husband, William Liske. William Liske is 44. He was retired from the Air Force, and he worked as a front-end loader for Waste Management. He also enjoyed hunting, fishing, gardening, and being outdoors with his family and friends.
And murdering his wife?
When the couple married in 2001, they became a blended family. Susan had 2 sons from a previous marriage. You've got Devin Griffin. He was 7 when the couple married. And Susan's older son, Derek Griffin. He was 14 when they got married. And then William brought 1 son into the marriage, William Jr. His nickname is BJ for Billy Jr. So we're going to call him BJ for the case.
I'm sure.
So, and yeah, I did laugh every time I read BJ.
It's not past tense. You're still laughing.
I'm not reading it. I'm telling you about it. But anyway, BJ was 15. Okay.
Okay.
So now you've got an idea of the family. It's a blended family. They live on about 100 acres with their 2-story farmhouse set back about 200 feet from the road. So if that gives you like your scenery, picture that. Now, Devin spends time with his biological father on the weekends, and Susan's boys had a pretty good relationship with their stepfather, William, which you would naturally expect because they got
Why?
married and the kids were kind of young. So they're growing up with him as a role model in the household. So they have a pretty decent relationship with their stepfather. And although the family did have the occasional struggle being a united family, it was mainly because William was often forced to choose between Susan and his biological son, BJ. The strife within the blended family was because BJ had a bit of a temper and would have violent outbursts. Quite often, he would threaten to kill Susan. His aggression would continue to escalate over the years. BJ seemed to despise his stepmother, Susan.
Where's his mom?
She's there. Through his childhood, I think it was more of a visitation type thing
Hmm.
with BJ, and he just hated.
Well, maybe his mom was telling him that like she's the other lady, the reason why we can't all be together.
So I don't know if it's even necessarily that so much as BJ most likely lived with his mom, because we know how the United States feels about moms being separated from their children. And so when his dad remarried and Susan brought her 2 boys into the relationship, those 2 boys are bonding with BJ's father on a daily basis while BJ is at his mom's house. So I'm going to guess that the relationship between BJ and his dad, he was maybe envious of the relationship that William was growing with Derek and Devin because they lived with him the majority of the time. So I think that was a bit of the hostility of he's losing his dad to this woman and her 2 kids, or he's having to compete for his attention. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because that's the way I interpreted it. So BJ went from being just verbally abusive and threatening Susan to eventually becoming physically abusive. And in 2004, BJ at this point is 19. He punched Susan in the chest. And then 2 months later, he also hit Susan with a coffee mug and took her car keys. He was charged with felonious assault and robbery stemming from that incident. The charges were later dismissed because he was found not competent to stand trial, but BJ would be released to a mental facility until his father, William, would apply to be his guardian.
How old was he?
He was 19. Now we're going to jump forward because that was in 2004, right? So he spent some time, I don't know how long, in the mental institution. And then once his father became his guardian, he moves in permanently with Susan, William, Devin, and Derek. And now in 2010, our year of our incident, we've got Susan, who's 46, William, who's 53, Devin is now 16, and Derek is 23. And then BJ at this point is 24 years old. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So now that BJ's back at the house, he ends up being arrested several times. This is in 2010, mostly for disorderly conduct.
I don't get why they don't boot his ass out. He's not a baby anymore. He's 24.
Right. So I think because of his mental health issues, he has to be supervised. And I did read some articles about him being possibly schizophrenic and needing some sort of supervision.
But at what point do you consider the influence that individual would be on the rest of the younger children?
So I think that's kind of the fight, the bickering that goes on between Susan and William of I realize this is your son, but the level of anxiety that comes with having him within the household at what point is too much.
Spoiler, it's now!
But when BJ's arrested in 2010 for disorderly conduct, he pleads no contest in April, June, and in August for disorderly conduct.
What is he doing?
I don't know, being disorderly.
Thanks for clearing that
But
up.
it wasn't important, in my opinion. He got arrested. He didn't do any real jail time for anything. He's out. He's living in the house. That's all that matters. So tensions are running high. William decides he needs to have some one-on-one bonding time with his son. He needs to, help reassure BJ that he is loved. And so the father and son go up to the family's cabin nearly 200 miles away in Carroll County, Ohio,
He's dead.
and go hunting the week before Halloween.
He's dead.
When I told this case, when I was bouncing this case off my son's brain, he kept doing the same thing. You both are annoying.
Well,
but anyway,
just saying, he's not coming back from that Halloween camping trip.
Everything goes well on the trip, and the father and son return home right before Halloween.
Nice.
A side note of what's to come, too many times we've seen in cases that we've done where people struggle with their mental health and then add drugs or alcohol to the mix. It literally has never ended well. And considering BJ has a history of being combative and violent while sober, things are made worse when he drinks alcohol. And that brings us to Saturday, October 30th, 2010. The Lisks, William and Susan and the boys, they're having a Halloween party with their neighbors out in the barn.
They're all dead.
Devin's staying with his biological father that night. William and BJ are still having some father-son bonding.
Hold up, I thought they got back from their camping.
They did, but they're still bonding, and they're drinking them some devil's juice during the Halloween party. They actually drink quite heavily, but thankfully, the party ends incident-free around midnight. Everybody goes off back to their houses and goes to bed for the night. The next day is Halloween. 16-year-old Devin Griffin comes home from staying the night at his father's house, grabs his choir gear, and says hey to BJ as he runs out the door to a church concert. After a long night on Saturday and an early morning for church, Devin just wanted to go to his room and play his video games. So he goes inside and does just that. He goes straight to his bedroom and starts playing his games. At some point,
he realizes everybody's dead in the house.
At some point, Devin realizes it's starting to get dark and trick-or-treaters would be coming by soon, and he promised his mom he'd help pass out candy.
He was hungry.
He opens his bedroom door, looks around, and the home seemed kind of strange. It was so dark and quiet. Too quiet. Like a creepy kind of quiet.
They're all dead!
Great. Devin's suspicious that his family is playing a Halloween prank on him, and somebody's going to pop out from somewhere and try to scare the bejesus out of him. So Devin went to go check on his mother and stepfather. He goes to their bedroom. Weird. They're asleep in bed.
No, they're not. They're dead!
Devin decided to go wake up his mom because trick-or-treaters would be arriving soon. Mom! Mom! No response. So Devin reaches out and shakes his mom's shoulder a bit. Mom, you need to get up. Still, no response. He thought they were going to try to pop up and scare him, but joke's on them because Devin wasn't going to be scared that easily. So he yanks the blankets back, and nothing could have prepared Devin for the horrors that were hidden beneath the sheets. 16-year-old Devin was shocked to find his mom and William in bed, covered in blood. Blood is literally everywhere. Devin was stunned for a minute because part of him believed they were faking and it was fake blood from the Halloween party that they had thrown the night before. But then reality sets in. This is really happening. This poor, now traumatized teen began screaming and crying, pleading with his mom to please wake up. The petrified teen ran from the house and he called his aunt and she called 911. The police come out, and as they search the house, they notice there's no signs of a struggle, and officers also noted muddy footprints outside of the house. So police are in the house, and they discover 53-year-old William had been shot in the head and face 5 times.
Ooh. How close are the houses?
So their house is on 100 acres, so I feel like they're not close.
Yeah, you told me that.
So
could be a narrow lot.
So 46-year-old Susan had been shot 3 times. She was shot in the head and also had a defensive wound. She was shot through her hand after being sexually assaulted.
Gross. By her son? Even if it's step, that's disgusting.
The police began looking for 23-year-old Derek. Police go to Derek's bedroom door upstairs and found that it was locked from the inside. So police knock on the door, say Derek can open the door. No response. So they break down the door. They find Derek curled up in the fetal position on his bed with obvious, severe blunt force trauma to his head. Now, brace yourself, Claire.
BJ did it.
Police fear that a hammer was used to kill Derek. I know. I do lots of them cases
You
with the
do, but
hammers.
how did they walk in and just assume it was a hammer and not any other object?
So I'm guessing that by some of the indentions left in this poor man's skull, they suspect something like a hammer. Police believe there's a reason for the two different murder weapons. They believe that the hammer or blunt object was used to kill Derek first while he was asleep in his bed because it was a quiet way to murder someone, quieter than a gun.
Right. The noise. I figured.
Next, they believe William was shot and killed, and then Susan was sexually assaulted and murdered.
Do you ever watch that one where it's like these two teen boys kill their whole family and they did the same thing of they opted to use the knives because they didn't want to wake up the parents?
It was quiet. Yeah. There's lots of people that do that. Really quite disgusting. But the murderer also took time to collect the 8 shell casings from the crime scene to try to clean up after themselves. They also took whatever blunt object they used with them. This poor kid, somebody's beat his older brother to death.
But he didn't see the brother. He just saw the
Right.
parents.
Right, but he now knows his older brother's dead. His stepfather, William, was shot 5 times in the head and face. His mother was sexually assaulted and shot.
I'm not saying it's less sad, but I'm just saying he didn't. He at least doesn't have that visual.
No, he's got the visual of his mom being undressed, murdered, and his stepfather murdered.
Better than piling it on. Just because he saw one doesn't mean it's like, now go see your smashed in skull of a brother.
So Devin lost his whole family in just a few hours. Things can't get much worse, right?
So I'm assuming BJ did it, which is wild because he walked in and was so flippant when he came in the house.
But things can't get much worse, right? But things can always get worse. Police believe it's possible that Devin might be responsible for the murders of his family and the rape of his own mother.
That's foul, but
Right.
he was home and he didn't call 911, he called his aunt.
So police look thoroughly into Devin, and I think because of the timeline of arriving home and then police being called seems strange to the police because you've been gone staying at his father's. You come home and you don't say hi to anybody.
Hold up. No. I think anybody suspicious of that hasn't been around a teenager.
Right.
Let alone a teenager with a gaming device.
I think that's why the police were like, they were all dead in the house and you just went and played video games. But neighbors end up telling police they heard what they assumed were gunshots around 6:30 Halloween morning. Thankfully, the police determined not only is there absolutely no signs of Devin ever being hostile or violent, but police also determined based off of the body temperatures, the neighbors hearing gunshots, that Devin was at his father's house at the time of death, and this kid just came home and decided to play video games while his whole family was dead in the house.
Could you imagine seeing that and then being told, well, we think you raped your mother?
No, that's why I was like, things can get worse. So the police were like, who else could have done something so heinous? And Devin was like, when I came home to get my choir stuff, BJ was outside in the driveway loading something into our dad's white Ford F-150. So the police were like, well, where's BJ now? Police redirect their focus to locating BJ. Rather than drive the 170 miles to the family hunting cabin, police call the sheriffs in Carroll County and inform them they're looking for BJ. They give a description. He's been arrested before, so they have a mugshot. They tell the sheriffs that the murder suspect is considered to be armed and dangerous, and he's most likely in the family's hunting cabin, where BJ was last known to have been with his now murdered father. So Carroll County sheriffs go out, and lo and behold, they find William's F-150 in the driveway. While the one sheriff is outside, a man exits the house smoking a cigarette. As soon as the man spots the officer, he throws both his hands up in the air, got down on the ground, and William B.J. Liske Jr. is arrested without incident within 3.5 hours of Devin finding his mom and stepfather murdered.
Does he end up not being tried because he's in that case and has passed?
Do you really think I'm going to answer that? You think I put together this case so I could just be like, oh, you want to ask the ending right now? Sure. Let me tell you the answer. Absolutely not.
So what you're saying is your headache is doing well.
No, actually, my head hurts real bad. So you're just going to have to hold your horses, lady.
I ain't got any horses.
Officers discover blood and a 22 caliber rifle in the white pickup truck. Spoiler, that is
What
their
kind?
murder. I don't know. It's a gun. It goes boom when you pull the trigger.
Well, I think more for a 22, it goes tink.
Even with a rifle,
I'm just fucking with you, Andrea. I wouldn't consider a 22 going boom.
whatever. Anyway, officers also discover a bloody hammer inside a closet in the family's cabin. So they have both their murder weapons now. BJ Liske was arrested and charged for murder. He was claiming he was not guilty, even though DNA evidence proved he was covered in his father's blood, his stepmother's blood, and his stepbrother's blood.
And he was inside of his stepmother.
BJ called his mother on a recorded line from jail, and she asked her son,
It was consensual.
how could you? And BJ simply responded with, I wasn't in my right mind. Mom, I can't talk about this anymore. And after that last phone call with his mother, BJ changed his plea and he pled guilty to 3 counts of aggravated murder to avoid the death penalty. And on Wednesday, September 14th, 2011, BJ was sentenced to 3 life sentences without the possibility of parole. They did find him competent to stand trial. I think it was along the lines of, even if he's claiming he's mentally unstable, the fact that he chose to add alcohol to that mix because he chose to be inebriated, you can't use that as an insanity defense.
I'm surprised if he tried to plead that one that they would let him plea.
I think that they had enough on him that they were just willing to be done. It was either death penalty. They knew they could probably get the death penalty. Actually, if a jury found that he wasn't mentally stable, then maybe he wouldn't have got it. I don't know. Maybe that's why they decided to plea it out. They knew there was a chance that they wouldn't get the death penalty, but they knew for sure they'd get like life without parole.
Hmm.
However, I don't know if it was the nickname BJ in prison that led to
Him being toothless.
but
He's got scratches all over his face.
BJ Liske, at 29 years old, was found dead from self-inflicted wounds at 11:25 p.m. on March 31st, 2015, while incarcerated at the Ross Correctional Institute. About 4 years after the murders, 5 years, he committed suicide.
I don't feel bad for him.
I don't either. I do, in the sense that if he did
No.
struggle with his mental health, it
No.
sounds like a lot wasn't actually done to help him. It was just enough to try to pacify him. And that wasn't actually helping him.
No. No.
Yeah.
My guess would be he was a non compliant kind of patient, so you can't help somebody if they're not wanting to be helped. And if they think they can make things better with drugs and alcohol, they're going to do that regardless of if it's not recommended. So I think since he had an issue from being a child with the hostile and the violent, all the things, it wasn't gotten a handle of then to get him on any sort of meds. And I'm not saying it's easy to find the right meds to sort it all out, but he was angry and hostile then.
Yeah.
He just became an adult.
Right. And I know this is easy to sit back and cast judgment, and I'm not trying to be judgmental,
I'm judging.
but
He done killed everybody.
well, I understand that. I'm talking about before all of this. As a teenager, they have control over him to the level of, if he's not going to be compliant, then I I realize he's your flesh and blood. You want to be there to love and support your son. I figure the father must have had some sort of guilt that their family was split up. And so that was probably why he was making some excuses for his son's behavior, which did cause issues with Susan.
It could also be a case of if they're co parenting, the one doesn't think there's anything wrong.
Well, I don't think that once his son is assaulting his wife that was acceptable. I think also the fact that she was willing to drop the charges and he was put into a mental institution for a little bit. I feel like Susan was trying to work with her husband, but at the same time, she's got her own minor children. BJ is an adult. He should have been left in the hospital. I think the mistake was signing to be his guardian to make sure he's doing the things he's supposed to. And then also, I realized he ended up murdered, but providing alcohol, even though it was a social situation, I think somebody that was mentally unstable and has an issue with being volatile and combative, especially towards his wife, providing his son with that alcohol was kind of a bad decision. And I realize hindsight's 2020, but not really, because they see a pattern of violence, especially if he's messing with the devil's juice. I just thought it was really sad. And then there was a murder prior to in 2009 in Ottawa County. Has nothing to do with this case. This is just one of my fun facts here. But prior to that 2009 murder, that county had gone nearly 8 years without a homicide. So there was one murder, and then BJ kills these three. And then, not to get distracted, but while I was doing research on this case, I found an article. But just 6 months after BJ killed his family, a 31-year-old man named Alan Atwater called 911 after he murdered his 30-year-old wife, Dawn, and their three children, a daughter, Ashley, who was 4, and their two sons, Isaac, who was 3, and Brady, who was just 1. There were no signs of marital issues, financial issues. There was nothing. Just a 911 call, and the police go out, and they find Alan had also killed himself, all gunshot wounds. And Alan had a 12-year-old daughter named Mandy who was at her mother's house. But I just thought it was crazy that the heck's with this county and people annihilating their families.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I done told you Ohio has a lot of sick people.
no, you done said they have a big drug problem, which I agree with.
That's sick.
No, that's added. Well, whatever. Splitting hairs, as you like to call it.
I have not said that.
Splitting hairs when we're just playing word games.
I've said it's the camel that broke the straw's back.
That's not a thing. But anyway, happy Halloween, everybody. I hope you guys are safe out there.
Trust no one.
Lock your doors when you get home.
And make sure everybody's alive.
Yeah.
When they come back. Oh, don't forget to do the candy taste test.
Yeah, poison yourself first, not the children.
Uh,
Well, if the candy's poisoned and you eat it, you die, not the child.
So I was going off of like how our mother taste tested our candy. Like, if it's a bad piece, and take that one and that one.
Man, she really did like to do that. Did you know my kids don't like when she goes trick-or-treating with us, because when we get back to the house, she raids all their candy. Her and her husband.
That's just the bad pieces, because they're bigger so that they don't get all the poison ends like the children would.
Mom always takes the bazooka bubble gum.
And then she would shit all the way home. Maybe I made up that last part, but you don't know.
Oh, gosh.
Speaking of which, and also don't eat open food. Like, I get that way back, it might have been a nice thing for, like, the older crowd I'm looking at to, like, make the treats and, like, the like, made candies and stuff, or the chocolates, molds, or whatever nonsense. But just gonna tell you, I think it's wild that people will eat stuff that perfect strangers will hand them. I'm thinking specifically of at the pharmacy when somebody came through the drive-thru and handed this one of the techs strawberries that had like piped in cheesecake or cream cheese or whatever whipped nonsense went in there. She was sitting there eating it, and I was like, "Oh, who's that? I don't know." What do you mean you don't know? Somebody just came through the drive-thru, not picking anything up, but gave you food, and you're eating it?
She's hungry.
Are you an adult? Did he also tell you he has puppies in his van? Shit, man. Just saying. Make good decisions. Smell it first. Rub it on your face. Survival
Last
hack.
year when we went trick-or-treating.
Trickle-treating? Is that like when you walk slower?
Only when Mom goes.
Or when you guys are peppered all across the road. You're trickling.
So there was this one house that was giving out candy to the kids and Jell-O shots for the adults.
Still wouldn't do that. I mean, I guess if you're in like a really close neighborhood and like you know your neighbor, it could be funny.
Yeah.
You know what I find sad? They don't do the trick-or-treating anymore. It's all that trunk-or-treat nonsense.
I don't know. They still do lots of it around here. It's the neighborhood.
You get trick-or-treaters?
Not at my house, because it's in the middle of nowhere. We have no neighbors.
Exactly. I'm just as sad as all. We have the perfect driveway for a haunted trail.
Except that you don't decorate.
Because that thing is creepy, not Halloween. It's not lit. It just, things are making noises. It's wooded. It's just scary. Last time I wheeled the trash can down there without a torch.
I know you mean a torch like a flashlight, but I totally pictured you with like a torch.
Like I said in the beginning, she's been sick for a real long time. Don't mind her none. She don't got to doctor.
I do have a headache. It's like a week-long headache. My brain hurts real bad.
I would suggest you take a nap, but I fear you won't be up to pick up your boy.
I can't nap anyway. I gotta take the dog for a walk.
I assume that's all you got, or are you going to go through a rundown all the things you're going to do today?
I gotta mop the floor.
Thank you for listening to Homicide Hobbies. I'm Claire.
I'm Andy.
Follow us each week to get your fix of the atrocities that occur in true crime. And don't forget to tell people about us and rate us if you like us. But don't rate us if you didn't. Just change the